Hello, drummers. I thought I would do a live stream tonight because I had a cancellation. So I thought, hey, what a better time than to do a live stream. I'd be teaching anyways. So I thought that I would also let you know I'm doing something different tonight. Microphone-wise, I'm using my Yamaha EAD10. So you'll hear the drums, but I gotta take the talkback off when I play, I just remembered. So the talkback is on right now, and I'm using this mic right here. So that's what I hope you can hear me. So if anyone is watching currently, please let me know if you can hear this or not. I'm gonna do a quick test here just in case nobody is watching at this particular time. Check. Check. Test. Test. Testing. Check. Testing. Let's see here. That should try. Check. Testing. Check. Check. Testing. Let's hope that mic is working. Let's hope it is working. I think it is. Yes, I think we've got a mic. Hopefully it's fairly loud. You can hear clearly. All right, I'm going to turn this back off over here. Okay. All right, now I can hear myself very clearly. Hopefully you can hear me clearly through this microphone. This is my first time ever trying this, so we'll see if it's interesting or not. If I take the talkback off, you'll hear the drum kit through the EAD10, and I have it on Rock Scene, I think it's called Rock. So you should be able to hear what I hear, which is the different scenes that I have on this Yamaha EAD10. Now the current scene that I'm using, like I said, is a rock scene. I'm just going to put some effects on my voice here. Yeah, a little echo. It's like we're in a stadium here. This is so cool. This is the first time I've tried this. It just sort of came to me today that I figured out how to use this thing in terms of this. I mean, I know how to use it for all the videos that I do, but I somehow just a bell went off in my head that I can use this for live streams and I can use it for teaching. I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner, but here we are. Okay, so we're going to talk about drum teachers, the importance of a drum teacher. Now, I'm a drum teacher. I'm a professional drum teacher, and I play drums professionally. And so, yes, people would say you're a little bit biased because that's what you do. And I would have to agree with them. So I am going to go on both sides of the fence. I want people to weigh in. Anyone that happens to be watching can weigh in the comments. I'll we'll have a chat here as well. And this was a bit of a surprise. I hadn't even planned on doing this. It's just when my drum lesson fell through, I thought, hey, I might as well just try out this Yamaha EAD10 if I can live stream with it. And this has been a success so far, so I'm really happy testing this out. I just hope the microphone works really clearly. I mean, I can hear myself really clearly. The microphone sounds like it's picking me up really good. I just hope that you guys out there can hear me clearly. Anyways, drum teacher. So let me give you a little bit of history about my lessons. I started playing drums at 7 and didn't take any lessons for 3 years till I was 10. And how that came about was my mother came storming up the stairs one day because the drums were in my bedroom, and She came in my room and she said, "That's it. I've had enough. I have had enough. You are going to have to learn how to play this instrument." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I can play." I'm 10 years old and I'm like, "I can play. I don't need lessons." And she says, "Well, I'm sick of hearing the same grooves over and over and over. So you got to take some lessons." So at first I was against it because I was scared. I'm going to be totally honest. I was intimidated. So that's the first hurdle you've got to get over, is you're scared. You're afraid of somebody saying you suck. You're afraid of somebody saying, "Don't do it like this, do it like this." You're afraid of the whole, he's better than you, someone that's going to be way better than you, and you're going to feel really, really small and insignificant. Well, you got to get over that, because all of that is true. Your brain and your mind will play games with you and convince you that you don't need a teacher and you can do it on your own. But in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I am a drum teacher, I'm saying this because I went through everything I'm talking about. I went through. My mom finally convinced me and I went. And boy, am I ever glad I did, because I got over my fear and everything very quickly. The teacher was awesome. His name was Tim, coincidentally. And he was a great guy, you know, and he made me feel at ease very quickly. And the first few lessons were really tough for me. But I realized that it's actually good to see somebody play that's better than you, that can actually show you some things, because it's going to make you better in the end. That's the bottom line. So here I am, 10 years old. My mom convinces me to go to High Note Music in Oakville. And I live in, at that time, in Oakville, Ontario, Canada, where I grew up. And so I started taking lessons there, downtown, on Lakeshore at the time. And I took lessons there for about 4 years, and then Tim left because the band that he was in had some success and he went off touring. Then I didn't have a drum teacher for a little while, and oh, I got some comments here. 1 second. That's a classic reaction, it seems, from parents at that age. Yeah. Hey, Slane, thanks, man. You're absolutely right. That is a classic reaction. I'm tired of listening to the same stuff. You got to learn how to play. So, Slane, since you're watching now, let me know, how does the mic sound? Can you hear me clearly and it's coming through nice and clear and everything is good? There's no background weird noises or anything? Oh, my computer just went a little crazy on me. I think I'm back. Hope I'm back. Yeah, okay. So, like I was saying, Slane, let me know how the sound is, if you can hear me clearly. I mean, you probably can because you're responding, but I just want to make sure. So, didn't take lessons for a little while as a 14-year-old, but then I got another drum teacher at age 15, and I studied with him for, I don't know, maybe a year and a bit. And then I was in a punk band at the time when I was 14 years old. My first band was called Obsession for Music, and I wanted someone that was a rock drummer, because this guy was more funky and jazzy, and he was showing me things, quite frankly, that were way over my head. I wanted a simpler drum teacher. So I ended up hooking up with another guy at a music store. I think his name was Shane, but I'm not 100% sure. It was a long, long time ago. And I studied with him for a while. And then it was bouncing around between a few different teachers. You know, there was no YouTube. And sounds great listening and watching you on my TV. Awesome. Awesome, man. That's fantastic. I'm great. Thank you very much for letting me know. Now I can be at ease when I'm using, because I'm using this EAD10 for the first time. So, anyways, bouncing around a little bit, got a bunch of different drum teachers. Then finally, I can't remember exactly how old I was. I was in my early 20s, but I was inspired to, I can't remember exactly how I found this person, but one of my greatest drum teachers came along. I stumbled across him. I don't remember how, to be totally honest. I can't remember how we originally hooked up, but Kevin Dempsey, fantastic drummer. Now, Kevin was a jazz drummer, and you know, when I was a teen, yeah, it was punk, it was Van Halen, it was Black Sabbath, it was Zeppelin, it was rock. But as I got a little bit older, I started to realize that not that rock drummers are bad by any means. I still love rock drummers and rock music to this day. But I realized that jazz drummers were very different than rock drummers. And that jazz music was very different than rock music. Because I went and saw a drummer by the name of Dennis Villeneuve when I was around 20 or 21. Canadian jazz drummer from Toronto. And I think, again, it was just a situation where I stumbled across him. I was eating dinner in this restaurant, and this jazz band started playing. And I can remember thinking, he is doing, I have no clue anything that he's doing. He's doing things that I don't understand, but they sound so good, and he is such a great drummer. And Dennis is a legendary Canadian drummer. He's passed away now, unfortunately. But he was the guy that inspired me. Now, of course, you know, you saw Buddy Rich on TV once in a while, and Louis Belson, Gene Krupa, and whatever. But it's one thing to see those guys. It's a whole other thing to see someone live. I would see those guys on TV. Now, I could never do what Buddy could do, so I looked at Buddy and just, you know, just blown away and never thought, oh, I want to be like Buddy. I actually never thought that because I thought I can never do what he does. But when I saw Dennis Villeneuve live, I thought, I want to learn how to do that. So after that was when I hooked up with Kevin. Somehow I hooked up with him. I can't remember. So I studied with Kevin for a long time. Now, there was a few other one-off lessons along the way with other teachers, but basically Kevin was the main teacher that I had. And from Kevin, I really grew an incredible love and respect for the jazz music, but not just jazz, because I learned how to play Brazilian, I learned how to play some Afro-Cuban with Kevin, I learned how to play fusion, I learned about odd times, I learned about music. I mean, Kevin gave me the full education. You know, I learned about form of tunes, and the reason was because Kevin was an educated musician. He'd gone to music school, he was an educated musician, he was a very intelligent musician. He understood music, not just drumming. He understood both, and he understood the relationship between the bass player, the guitar player, the keyboard player, the singer, whatever. And I would go and see Kevin play live and think, man, this guy has just got it all together. And it was then that I thought, I really, really want to pursue a career in music. And I wanted to be a drummer my whole life, ever since I was a little kid. But I never really thought, can I do this professionally? Kevin was the one that said, you can do it. So, through Kevin, I went to music school. Well, not directly through Kevin, but he prepped me with what was going to be in the audition. And I auditioned at Humber College in Toronto, and I auditioned at Mohawk College in Hamilton. And I got accepted at Mohawk. And I went and did the program at Mohawk. It was awesome. Kevin was my teacher. But I also met up with other people, and I started to branch out and really appreciate how many, many different drummers approach the same thing. So you can have one idea, 10 different drummers, and now you got 10 ideas. So I started to realize that all these great drummers out there really bring something to the table. So that's when I became obsessed with taking drum lessons and studying and seeking out guys. So when people say to me, how the heck did you ever get lessons with Dom Famularo? How did you ever get a lesson with Memo Acevedo? How did you ever get a lesson with Chuck Silverman? These are all fantastic drummers. The reason was because I was driven and I sought them out. And Chuck, I have to tell you a story about Chuck. So Chuck would have been in the late 80s, early 90s. I started taking some lessons with him. Now, I was still taking lessons with Kevin, but I also wanted to do some things with Chuck because he's a legendary Afro-Cuban funk drummer, legendary. So I did something back in those days that was unheard of, and it's a funny story. So here's how I took lessons with Chuck. Chuck lived in California. I think it was in Oakland, California. And I lived here in Canada. Well, it's quite a long drive to go there weekly for lessons, or even monthly or bi-monthly, whatever. It's a long way, and it wasn't cheap for me to fly there, hotel, have the lesson, etc., etc. At that time, I just didn't have the money. So the thing that Chuck did was he filmed the lesson in his little shed, and then he would mail me. I have the tape around here somewhere, well, not just one, I have many, many tapes from Chuck. And he mailed me the tape. Then he would say, okay, get yourself a camera, film yourself working on the lessons that I give you, and then film yourself actually executing the lessons to the best of your ability, and send it back to me. And then I'll preview it, I'll make some corrections, I'll send you a new tape. So back in those days, we were doing videotapes back and forth, snail mail. So he would film, mail it to me, I would get it, I don't know, within a month, 6 weeks, maybe even longer. Then I would watch it, practice, then I would finally film myself. I didn't want to film myself being too terrible. So I would get some of it together, and then I would film myself practicing it, and then I would practice some more and some more. So this took time. You got to remember, this took time for me to get decent at the stuff that he was giving me, because it was all new. It was all new to me. So I had to work on my Afro-Cuban independence. He was giving me all these super cool funk beats from James Gadson and Clyde Stubblefield and all the legendary jazz guys, you know, Kool and the Gang drummer, I can't remember his name, and David Garibaldi, stuff like that. So then I would finally get it together, and then I would film myself, or at least somewhat get it together. I'd film it, put it in an envelope, send it off, and Chuck and I did these lessons back and forth for quite some time. I can't remember how long, but it was quite some time. And he did this, it wasn't just me that he did this for, he did this for other people too. But that was the early Zoom, if you want to call it, a Zoom lesson, but there was no immediate response like what we're sort of getting here, or what I would get if I was doing a Zoom lesson. I would get an immediate response. My student can see me, I can see my student, it's an immediate response. So there was Chuck. Then there was another teacher at Mohawk who has incredible snare drum technique. Incredible. And he was a great drummer, great guy, really hit it off with him. To this day, I still talk to him and don't really see him too much, but I do talk to him on Facebook and whatnot. And his name is Ernie Porthouse. And Ernie was, and still is, I think he's been doing it for over 40 years, the Hamilton Philharmonic drummer slash snare person, snare drummer person. I'm wording it wrong. He was also a timpanist and percussionist. So everything that they needed drumming wise, whether it be snare, timpani, percussion, drum set, Ernie was the man. And he's a brilliant player. One of the finest readers of music in the world. Incredible. I can remember Roger Flock telling me, one time I did a gig with Roger Flock. He was percussion, I was drum kit, and I mentioned about Ernie, and he said Ernie is the best reader of music that he'd ever seen. And Roger at the time was the head of the drum department at Humber College. So we're talking about a guy that knows his stuff, and he really highly respected Ernie and thought Ernie was fantastic. And you know, Ernie would teach me Zeppelin, he would teach me Afro-Cuban, he would teach me Brazilian, he would teach me, of course, snare drum technique. And we didn't get into a lot of the symphony type of very delicate technique, because I was never going to aspire to become a symphony player. That was never going to be my bag. So then we just carry on, and I've had so many teachers, it's exhausting talking about all of them all the time, because I have had a lot. The There is one teacher though, because I had a lot of one-off lessons, like Wilson Laurentian was a one-off. I had a one-off lesson with Thomas Lang. That was awesome. But that one-off lesson with Thomas Lang lasted for a long time because it was at a camp. It was actually more than one lesson, but it was just in a daytime or a weekend period, right? So, but the teacher that really, really changed my life dramatically is a guy by the name, the legendary Dom Famularo. Now, I can't say enough good things about Dom Famularo. I've known him for about 15 years, studied with him for that entire duration. Now, he's been ill. He's recovering from pancreatic cancer. He survived. He's a cancer survivor. He's amazing. I'm going to see him in the summer. He hasn't been teaching. He hasn't been doing much because he's been recovering and fighting and chemo and all that stuff. Now, he is doing the Chicago Drum Festival, I believe, and he's going to NAMM as well. So he's going to be back at it again. Dom is going to be back at it again, the world's drumming ambassador. If you're not familiar with Dom Famularo, please check him out. Now, if you choose the route to not have a drum teacher, I think that you're hurting yourself because you can learn so much. Dom Famularo completely changed my technique for the better. I used to slouch. I used to be kind of stiff. My hip flexors used to cramp up. And, you know, I thought I really had it going on at the time years ago. I didn't have shit going on. It wasn't until he taught me the way that Buddy Rich approaches the drum kit in terms of technique. So I learned about Joe Morello's approach. I learned about Baby Dodd's. I learned about Jim Chapin, the molar stroke. I learned about all the legendary drummers' techniques, Tony Williams. Even though I did really, really get into Tony Williams with another guy, Toronto guy by the name of Jim Blackley, but that's a different story. So Dom taught me all about relaxation, the free stroke, exercise for the free stroke, the Billy Gladstone technique, which is the finger technique, and of course the molar stroke, because he had studied with all these guys. He was a student of Buddy Rich. He was a student of Joe Morello. He was a student of legendary Jim Chapin. I mean, it just doesn't get better than these teachers, you know? Now, I try to emulate Dom in a lot of ways. Now, not in the sense that I'm copying him, but his technique is so awesome that I try to get that looseness that he always talked about, that fluidity. Now, if you watch guys like Dave Weckl, Steve Smith, Vinnie Colaiuta, Todd Zuckerman, all the greats, what do they have all in common? Incredible drum technique, because they really, really focused on it. Now, I've heavily focused on drum technique, but I've learned the technique is to make you better on the drum kit for your groove. It's not necessarily just to play fast singles, fast doubles, fast paradiddles, and be able to play really fast around the drum kit. Now, that's awesome if you, if you can play fast around the drum kit. But I discovered through maturing musically on this instrument that the technique is to be able to back up a band and make the other musicians sound good because you're nice and loose and smooth. And if you listen to really great guys like Jeff Beccaro, Steve Gadd, Steve Jordan, the groove guys, Ringo, I love the way Ringo always played. If you listen to these guys, you will see that they make it look easy. So that's the ultimate compliment. So I have a comment here. Let's see, Slane again. I think one of the most important things about getting with a drum teacher is being able to click with it. Click with the drum teacher, is that what you mean, Slane? To be able to click with the drum teacher and what he's trying to teach? If that's what you mean, I totally agree. You definitely want to be able to teach, click with the drum teacher. I've had a couple of teachers that I didn't really click with. I'm not going to name any names, but there was two in particular that, I don't know, man, they didn't seem to have the passion and their heart wasn't in it. And they kept getting angry at me all the time because I just wasn't getting the stuff that they were teaching. But you definitely want to get with a teacher that is going to be there for you, to motivate you. I believe as a teacher, and Dom Famulero was the one that taught me this, you are there to uplift. You are there to motivate. You're there to excite your students, light a fire in them about music and drumming. You know, when I used to take lessons, I remember a teacher, Rick Gratton, another fantastic Canadian drummer, used to play in a band called Rough Trade. He was the drummer in Rough Trade, a Canadian band. High School Confidential was their big hit. Check it out if you're not familiar with it. Anyways, Rick, I remember him telling me that I would exhaust him at the lessons because I was so enthusiastic. I was so on him. I had so many questions, and he loved it, but I was exhausting. And I had a lot of teachers tell me that I exhausted them at the lessons. But it's enthusiasm, man. Enthusiasm is contagious. So when I'm with my students, I try to excite them. Be on the same level. Well, on the same level in terms of excitement and desire to want to learn. I have a student currently not teaching him. He just went off to university, but his name is Jalen. Now this kid, his enthusiasm was so incredible. I just loved it. And he made me even more excited. And I'm normally excited teaching drums because I love it. I get paid to play this instrument, and this is my job. I don't do anything else. I teach, I do YouTube, obviously, and I do studio work, and I used to gig, and I used to be a very, very active gigging musician. I played in hundreds of bands. That's a whole other video. But I retired from gigging, and I don't tour or play any gigs anymore, basically at all. I just do teaching, studio, YouTube, and, you know, I got my Tim Connolly drum swag and all that stuff that I'm selling now. And, you know, we're adaptable as drummers, and when one door closes, others open. That's how I see it. So to be on the same level, I was definitely on the same level with the majority of my drum teachers. They were on much higher level than me playing-wise. Obviously, you want your teacher to be much better than you and much more knowledgeable than you. You know, Kevin was the guy that taught me about musicality and being musical. And he kept saying, listen to Philly Joe Jones, listen to Elvin Jones, listen to Max Roach, listen to Art Blakey, listen to Tony Williams, you know, listen to Joe Morello, all the greats, because they're all so musical. And over time, I mean, we all go through phases. My favorite drummer is Neil Peart. However, I love musical drummers like Steve Smith. The drum solos and grooves that guy plays, there isn't a note that isn't musical and danceable, and you can't help but move to when he's playing. And Steve Gadd's another one. You cannot help but move when that guy is playing. Everything is so musical. Manu Cachet, if you're not familiar with Manu Cachet, French drummer, he was on Somewhere Down the Crazy River, Robbie Robertson, and he's also infamous for being the drummer with Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes. Listen to that. That drumming is phenomenal on those two songs. So, I mean, to be inspired by that kind of level of playing, that's what got me excited as well, that I wanted to rise to a much higher level and keep getting better and better and better. And having a drum teacher, you know, you become friends, especially as adults. You know, you got your teacher's obviously an adult. And as I, you know, grew up and like I said, taking lessons, like Dom and I are very close. I was very close to Kevin, still close to Ernie. I unfortunately don't see Kevin anymore. He's still playing and stuff, but I don't really see him anymore. I've tried to get a hold of him a couple times, but with no avail. But I still chat with Ernie once in a while, and Dom, I just talked to him the other day. So, I mean, you know, I haven't had a lesson with him for quite some time because of the sickness, but when Dom is feeling up to it and he's feeling better, I'll definitely be hitting the woodshed again with all the new stuff that he's going to give me. Because, you know, I'm almost 60 years old, but we never stop growing as musicians. That's why I love taking lessons. And that's why I love sitting down with a guy that's really skilled, seeing what he does, seeing how he approaches a simple thing like a paradiddle. Oh, I never thought of doing it like that. You know, that kind of thing. I can remember taking a lesson with Todd Zuckerman, and just the way that his different approach to phrasing and his double bass and double pedal approach. It was just fantastic, you know. Great to see you without the bandage on your hand. Well, I don't know if you can see, I still got the stitches in my hand. I'm still stitched up. I can move my hand. I can play drums, but not much. And I don't want to push it because of the, you know, the motion of hitting the drum. Excuse me, of hitting the drum is a lot of pressure. And I still got the stitches in. I don't want any tears or anything like that. The surgery seemed to be very successful. I can't quite fully make a fist yet, but that's okay. It'll come in time. I'm going to have to spend some time after doing the old Joe Morello exercise to get myself back in shape. Finger-wise, it's going to take me a little while to get both hands back in shape because I haven't been playing it at all, obviously, because of this surgery. And I just hope that next week I'm getting a shot in my thumb, steroid shot. I got 5 of them in this finger, it didn't work. I'm only getting 1 in this finger. If it doesn't work and my thumb tendon is still bugging me, surgery. But thanks for your concern. I really appreciate it, Slane. That's really awesome, man. The main thing about a teacher is the relationship that is formed. You'll never forget them. You'll never forget them. These are people, if you're a serious musician like I am, was, still am, going to be for the rest of my life, you develop a relationship with these guys because you want to dig into them and learn everything that you can. And Dom was like a father figure to me too. I'll tell you, Dom did some things for me, some amazing things for me. He helped me progress, not only as a drummer, but as a human being, because he's an amazing, amazing person. And he helped me become a better person and a much better drum teacher. Because one of the things that, you know, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but one of the things that I'm really good at as a teacher is breaking things down so that you understand the biomechanics of the movement, you understand what your entire body is doing. Like, through these lessons, I've developed my own ideas. So a drum teacher would show me something and I would practice what they would show me, and then I would adapt it to my own thing. So a perfect example of that is Dom telling me about the free stroke being loose, be loose, the whipping motion of the molar stroke, be loose, be loose. It was always this tension is the enemy of movement. So that really, really stuck with me because Dom was hammering at me every time, every lesson. I developed my own ideas from that, which I call the liquid effect. And that's the entire body being loose. And your bass drum technique gets so much better because you're loose. Your fluidity around the drum kit, your groove, your phrasing, your musicality, everything gets better because of this looseness. And the liquid effect, the idea behind that is continuous body flow. So if you throw a rock in a river and it doesn't, you throw a stone rather in a river, it ripples, and you see the ripple effect and it spreads through the entire river or small lake, pond, whatever. It's the same thing with the drums. When I hit this drum, it affects my entire body. It's not just the effect of hitting here, it's the liquid effect, which means it travels through my entire body. When I hit the bass drum, it travels up through my entire body. And I came up with this idea of continuous flow and movement through the body the same way that a lake continually flows if a pebble hits it and that ripple happens. So this is what I figured out on my own, the liquid effect. Now, I do have a video on it. I'm going to do a more in-depth video on it that explains it more. And I'm also going to be doing a video on bass drum technique and hi-hat technique coming up soon, because I can't do a lot with this, but I want to keep making some videos. So anyways, I've been talking this whole time here, man. Slane, you've been hanging in there. Thank you very much. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to let everybody go now. And like I said, I got some new videos coming out. My hand is getting better. I'll be back to the drums very, very soon. I'm back teaching. I was supposed to be teaching tonight. I was teaching tonight, but then I had a cancellation, and that's why I did this off the cuff. So keep drumming. I will see you again very soon. See ya.